Welcome to 5% Radio, where it's all about learning like no one else today so you can live like no one else tomorrow. Please be sure to share and subscribe. Hello and welcome back to the 5% Radio podcast. In the previous episode, episode number 4, we talked about why 95% of the people end up working 45 years and dying broke. Today, I want to talk to you about exactly how to move from the left side of the cash flow quadrant, earning your income actively, either as an employee. So quick review here. You can either be an employee, you can trade time for money. You can be a self-employed person. You can work for yourself. So obviously that's, someone who owns a small business or a doctor or a lawyer, someone who's a specialist. Or you can be a big business owner, someone that leverages systems and the efforts of an entire team. That does not depend on just your labor, what you can put into it. You can actually get a huge exponential multiplier of the time that you're able to put in, and you can be an investor in the other quadrant. So you can make money either actively or passively. You can do something that directly involves your time, which 95% of people do or more, or you can do something that 5% of people or less do, and you can actually have passive income that's not based on what you do and when you're able to do it. So about 95% of the people control roughly 5% of the wealth. I've heard even crazier stats. I've heard 99% of the people control 1% of the wealth and 1% control the remaining 99. But we'll just say 95 control 5% of the wealth and 5% control about 95% of the wealth. So what is the difference between the people that end up living financially free, that end up having passive income, that end up building wealth, that end up not having to trade their time? What's the difference between them and everyone else, and how can we learn to get to that other side of the quadrant and actually live a life where I have passive income coming in and I'm not having to trade the most valuable thing in my life, my time, for something that I can make more of tomorrow? So at the surface level, here's the primary difference between the 4 different ways that you can earn income and the people who are wealthy versus the people who are not. See, people on the active side, they actually produce something. They go out and they do something that earns their income, whereas wealthy people build things of value, assets that over time produce cash flow, positive cash flow, not just, net capital gains on an accounting sheet somewhere, but they actually produce positive cash flow. They have a return on investment, and then they take that positive cash flow and put that into investments that then create more money, more freedom, and higher levels of wealth. So it's not really so much about how much money you make, because people on the left side of the quadrant, people who are employees and self-employed, they really focus on how much money they make, which there's nothing wrong with that, but people are willing to trade crazy, ridiculous amounts of time. They're willing to sacrifice, endless amounts of time with their family. They're willing to do all kinds of things they hate doing for endless hours, even though it's never going to lead to what they actually want, just to make more money, when it's not really so much about how much you make, but how you make your money. See, it's more a question of quantity versus quality. How you make your money versus how much money you actually make, because wealth has a time component to it. It's not just a number of zeros. And when I say it's not just a number of zeros, here's what I mean. They print money every day. I said this just a second ago, but they print money every single day. Unless you've met someone that's offering to print you time, which if so, please do hit me up on social media so I can meet the person as well. But unless you meet someone that's offering to print you more time, unless you have this special relationship with someone where you can ask God for more time in your life, which, by the way, I'm being sarcastic, it's not going to happen. There's no way that you should ever value something that is finite versus something that's infinite. I can get more money every single day. Like, people literally, they lose money. They lose, there's change on the ground, there's dollar bills. I found $20 bills before with no one around. Like, there's no chance that I can ever find the owner. Like, all right, I just made $20, it's laying on the sidewalk, I'm out taking a walk. Now, obviously, if you go to any house and knock on the door and say, hey, is this $20 yours? No one in their right mind is going to be like, no, that's definitely not my money. So anyway, you can literally walk past, stumble across money. You will never be able to stumble across, find, or print or produce more time. So here's what I mean when I say wealth is measured in time. It's not just a number with zeros in the end of it. It's not just a bank account. It's not just a lifestyle or how much someone makes. There's a time component. So a perfect example of this would be if I have $1,000 to my name. Now, this is hypothetical. I have more than $1,000 and my living expenses are not this high either. But if I only had $1,000 to my name and I was spending $100 a day just to stay alive, for my heating and AC and my gas and my electric and my groceries and my insurance and all that kind of stuff, my phone bills. So all my bills came out to roughly $100 a day, and I had $1,000 to my name. That means I had 10 days worth of wealth. I have 10 days of freedom. Most people, if you were to measure freedom in time compared to their expenses versus the money that they made, most people would be in the hole, or it would only be like 7 days or 14 days, basically until they get their next paycheck. So if you want to be wealthy, if you want to become successful financially, and again, not every single episode is going to be on finances, but if you want to be successful, if you want to hit your goals, there's probably either a time or money component to the things that you would really like to do with your life. But wealthy people are people that have learned to treat time as gold and money as silver. Hopefully you got that. They treat time as gold and money as silver, meaning time is significantly more value in their lives. It is significantly more valuable. It has more value. They care about it more. It's a higher priority than them making money. I can never get more time. Again, just want to reiterate, I can never get more time, but I can always make more money. They print hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars of the stuff every single day. See, people on the right side of the quadrant understand three things extremely well that I'm going to be getting into in this episode, and then we'll talk about Ben Franklin. But people understand three things very well who are wealthy. Because people in business, they have to be students if they want to succeed. Now, 90+% of businesses fail in the first 5 years, and of those that make it past the first 5 years, I think it's like another 85 or 90%, some crazy statistic that fail within the next 5. So within 10 years, most people that go into business are out of business. It is hard to make it in business because a lot of people have improper information and they believe things that are not so. So if you have, little side note here, if you have a belief system that is not getting you the results that you want, then you need to change belief systems. I'm not talking about religions or Christianity versus something else. I'm not on that topic at all. What I'm saying is if I believe X to be true and it's producing Y and I do not like Y, I need to go back, episode number 1, thoughts, feelings, actions, results. I need to go back and look at what are my thoughts, feelings, actions, results. What is that loop? Because my thoughts are going to come out of my belief. So if I don't like the results that I'm currently getting, doing more of the same is not going to get me new results because it's going to produce the exact same results every single time. I'm not going to go to a Ford factory and sit there, and if I sit there long enough, they're going to eventually produce a Chevy. It's not going to happen. So if I continually do the same thing repeatedly, I'm not going to get new results. People in business, if you're not getting the results you want, or if you're an employee, I don't care what it is. Let's take this all the way to the umpteenth degree. Let's say it's a relationship, totally off the topic of money. My relationship with my spouse is not what I want. And it's not what I want over time, repeatedly, day after day after day. So I have two options. I can keep trying to do the same thing and hope and pray for a different result, which, by the way, hope is a terrible strategy if you're hoping for things to change. I can either keep doing the same exact thing, or I can change what I'm doing. And to change what I'm doing long term, I have to change my beliefs, because you're never going to behave in a manner that is inconsistent with the way you see yourself or the way you believe. You're not going to be able to do that consistently. Let me say that again. You will never behave in a manner consistently in a way that is inconsistent with the way you see yourself. So I can't do something over time repeatedly if I don't agree with that at a belief level. I'll talk more about that in a different episode. I don't want to geek out and get into that topic. All things mindset I could talk about all day, and I will do further episodes and a full mindset course and all that stuff. But basically, if you're not producing the results you want, you need to go back and look at your belief system and say, do I have the beliefs, the values, and the character traits, of the skills, the education necessary to succeed in the way that I want to? And if you don't, then you need to forget some things and learn some new things. Before I can learn new things, sometimes I have to unlearn or forget what I thought I knew. There's a cute little ditty that goes like this. Most people don't know what they don't know, because if they knew, they'd have, and if they don't have, it means they don't know. So most people don't know what they don't know, because if they knew, they'd have, and if you don't have, it means you don't know. So if I want a result in my life and I keep doing and keep doing and keep doing and keep doing over and over and over again, and I'm not getting it, it means that I don't know something that I think I know. Hopefully this is clear. What I think is true is not actually true, and I'm acting on a belief system that does not really support reality. It's not actually congruent with the way things work, even though I believe it. So you have to realize you don't know what you don't know. There's nothing wrong with that. You just have to begin to, number one, be aware of that, be okay with that, and begin to educate yourself in the direction that is in line with where you want to go. So like I said earlier, people in business have to be learners because if they want to succeed, they have to learn and grow to survive because things are changing every single day. In pretty much every industry, things change every single day. I don't care if you're in farming or if you own a marketing agency or if you're in manufacturing, things change every single day. An example of someone who was a phenomenal lifelong learner, because you need to adapt the lifelong learner mentality. See, most of us went to school and we were taught by people that don't have the results we want in life, and then we graduated, or we got our GED or our degree if you went to college, whatever. You did whatever you did for your education, and most people have the mindset that, okay, my education is over. That was a phase of my life. I'm done with that phase, and now I'm ready to go out into the real world. Well, let me ask you this. How well does your education in school or college really prepare you for, quote-unquote, the real world? To make a relationship work, to make money work, to actually have a successful, fulfilling life? Probably not that great. So if you want to change some things, you're going to have to begin to change some things, which is going to start with you learning new information. All change begins with new information or new ideas. You're not going to have a change if you don't have a change in your thinking. And one of the biggest determinants, one of the things that matters the most when it comes to, do I want to move from active income to passive income, is, according to Kiyosaki, your thinking. Here are the 3 areas that wealthy people understand and study continually at a deep level that people who are not wealthy or trading time for money or own a small business that never really gets to passive income, they don't understand these things at the level that the wealthy people do, or they may have no understanding of them whatsoever. So in no particular order, number 1, they understand leverage, business leverage. Here's what I mean by leverage. These people understand how to multiply their own efforts as many times as possible, meaning like I have a small input, the smallest input possible for the largest or greatest output. So if you want to think leverage, think of a pulley system. I can hook up a bunch of pulleys, and even if I am the weakest person in the room, I can hook up a bunch of pulleys and I can lift a car if I have the right pulley system and the right strength in the cable or the rope that I'm, probably not a rope, probably a cable that I'm holding on to. If I can hook things up properly, then I can actually end up moving a car with my own, just me pulling my arm down, even if I am the weakest person in the room. So when I say leverage, what I mean is the ability to exert a small amount of force and get a massive, hugely disproportionate output on your time, on your effort, on whatever it is that you're putting in. Next, these people understand leadership. They have the ability to influence, negotiate, market, sell. They understand individuals, and they know how to actually lead teams, small groups of people, large groups of people. They understand how to work with people. So that falls into soft skills, and I'll do an entire episode on those later, on people skills, on effective communication. Actually, I'd like to do a whole series on effective communication because it is such an important aspect of our lives, regardless of what field we're in. But one of the things that's been said in the past by a man named Dale Carnegie, he's passed away, he's no longer around, but he wrote a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. He wrote several books, but that is one of the most popular, and definitely his most popular book. And in this book, he said that 85% of success in any field was determined by the ability to deal with people. 85% of success in any field is determined by your ability to deal with people. If you can't speak well, if you can't influence people, if you can't lead people, if you don't have good managerial skills, if you don't have the ability to cast vision and be big picture, then you're going to have a difficult time becoming wealthy. And I'm not saying that you can't do it. I'm saying that you're going to have to learn that skill. So understand, as we go over these, wealthy people understand these things. And if you want to be wealthy, then you have to learn these skill sets and adopt these character traits. Lastly, these people understand financial literacy. So the 3 L's are leverage, leadership, and literacy. And I actually stole this from a leadership expert, Orrin Woodward. I did not come up with these 3 L's. They are easy to remember, though, and I wanted to share them with you. But when I say literacy, I mean that they understand the inner workings of money and how to maximize its effectiveness, the use of positive compounding interest. We'll talk more about that in later episodes, but just know that the education, what these people know, the wealthy people in the world, the 5% of people who actually have the results that most of us would like to have, which is time and money, and they live lives by their design, not by accident. They don't wake up and get punched in the face by their day and all their problems. They actually have a life that they design intentionally, that they live with a purpose. But these people, they learn and they think very differently. The information, the education that we all got growing up is extremely different from a 5% education. So if you want to become wealthy, if you want to move sides of the quadrant, there's going to be a huge shift in your thinking and your mindset. And you're going to have to learn more about these three topics: leadership, how to deal with people, literacy, finances, and leverage, how to get a disproportionate output based on the input of something small. Now, before we get into learning more about these topics, and we'll do that in future episodes, but I want you to understand a concept, and we're going to refer to this as being a lifelong learner. So when I say the three words and the overall concept of lifelong learner, probably the best example that I can use in story form to demonstrate this would be Harry S. Truman. So Harry S. Truman grew up in Springfield, Missouri, and although he was not really a super well-educated man, if you want to look at, scholastically, meaning school or credentials, he did not have a college education. He wasn't, did not have any higher education or, anything outside of high school really to speak of, but he was a lifelong learner in the sense that it was said that he read every single book in the Springfield, Missouri library where he grew up. Every single book. He was amazing with people, and he actually reportedly, continued the practice of reading a book a day. And there's so many people that will throw that around, I read a book a day, but he really was a lifelong learner, and he continued to read nearly a book a day for the rest of his life. So if he read 3/4 a day or, a book every other day, whatever, but according to what I've learned about him, he read just about a book a day. He continued that habit pretty much for the rest of his life until I'm sure there was at some point where he got too old to keep that up. But another guy that reads a ton, reportedly over 6 hours a day, I've heard 6 to 8 hours a day, is Warren Buffett, who's one of the world's wealthiest men, and he loves to read. And Charlie Munger was quoted saying something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing, but you're going to be hard-pressed to find another business partnership where two people read as much as Warren and I do. Like they just love to read. They're lifelong learners. They understand that if I want to continually get ahead and grow and not just rest on my laurels of what I've done in the past, but if I want to get better and improve, then I'm going to have to be a lifelong learner. Now, something that you have to understand when I say learning, what you do not need to go out and live a passive income, financially free, wealth building lifestyle on the right side of the cash flow quadrant. What you don't need is you don't need to go back to school to get a master's degree in business administration. What you don't need is more specialized education and schooling, because Robert Kiyosaki actually talks about people need to be more of generalists than they do specialists when it comes to their continuing education. After they've learned how to do what they've done in their field, you need to study what you need to learn in that field to succeed. You need to always be studying that field. And then you also need to study from different industries. You need to study different topics. So I read very widely. I read and understand that I'm never bragging if I tell you guys something that I'm currently doing or a habit that I have. I'm just sharing with you what I do. And this is something I got from two leadership experts, Chris Brady and Orrin Woodward. I digest a lot of their content, but one of the things that Chris Brady says is to beware the narrow man, meaning beware someone who is really, really, really good at one thing and they're not very widely studied. Not that that's a bad thing if you're a small business owner and you might be the best in the world at what you do. That's great. But a lot of these successful people, they read and they study pretty widely because they need to be able to relate with a lot of different kinds of people. And if I can study industry A that I'm in, but I also study industry B, F, and Y, because those are all unrelated industries, but I've found great ideas from those in the past, then I can read widely, but I'm still in the same field, but I'm reading in different types of industry. So I read in personal finance, I read in health. So I actually just started reading a book on sleep because I'm having issues with my sleep. I just wake up, I don't feel rested. So I'm reading a book on sleep right now. I'll let you guys know how that goes. That'll probably be a future episode, because rest and everything is extremely important. There has to be a balance there. So I read in personal finance, I read in health, I read in sleep, I read in relationships, I read in psychology, I read Christian books by, evangelists and things like that of yesteryear, people that have passed on. I read parenting books, I read leadership books, I read a ton of leadership, I read lots of marketing, lots of sales, business books as far as systems and processes and actually consulting style books. I love learning. So I read in areas that I particularly want to grow in and areas that I've seen help me in the past. I read tons of mindset, and I also read some counseling materials. But if it's a book that can help me, or it can help people, better yet, it can help people that I work with, then I will read in that category. I also read, lastly, a ton of books that help you deal better with people, that help you understand things like public speaking and negotiation, and how to have crucial conversations and how to really just relate with people and get down, meet them where they're at. So I read very widely because I understand that the education that we got in school, our scholastic education, the period of, preschool through graduating, hopefully it did not take more than, 13 years for you. So preschool, kindergarten, first grade, 13 to 14 years. If you went to preschool, hopefully it didn't take more than that. And you weren't like, a fifth or sixth year senior. You got to take the same grade multiple times. But most A students, here's the thing about education and why I'm not a huge fan of people just shoving education. You've got to go to college and it's so important. I can't tell you how many people have dropped out of even high school. I know people that barely graduated high school that are multimillionaires. Henry Ford was said not to have a degree. Or not to have a learning experience. I think it was beyond it was either the 6th or the 8th grade. It might have even been like the 4th grade, but it was something crazy. Einstein was kicked out of school. His teacher sent him home with a letter to give to his mother. And the letter said something along the lines of, your son basically is too stupid, too dumb for us to teach, so you're going to have to take care of him yourself. And his mother, being just such a wise lady, took the letter out and read it aloud to her son, even though it wasn't actually what it said. And she read the letter reportedly and said something along the lines of, your son basically is too intelligent, we can't handle him, and you're going to have to teach him yourself. That was not what the letter said, but his mom told him that, and he believed that, and that kind of probably played into him becoming Albert Einstein. But education that we receive in school does not really set us up for success. And in fact, most A students are people who are excellent at specific subjects. They're usually a high melancholy type or conscientious type, very detailed type personality. They learn super well from lectures and reading and watching pictures. So most A students are people who excelled at specific subjects, and they become extremely good at, let's say, biology or science, or I got super good at English, so they become great at that. And then they end up working in those fields or teaching those things, whereas most C students, on the other hand, become generalists. They didn't really care about school as much, but they're able to see the big picture. And these people are actually more, so if you did not do well in school, here's some good news for you. You can give this to your teacher. Robert Kiyosaki, someone who has lived in the B and the I quadrants for years, says that those people that get C's are more likely to end up on the path of financial freedom because they can see more big picture. So always remember this: grades don't pay bills and degrees don't buy dreams. So if you weren't a person that got phenomenal grades, grades do not pay bills. Show me how I got a straight A report card. I got a 4.0. I got a 4.3 in my college degree. I graduated magna cum laude, whatever. Great. Does that pay your bills? Does your degree actually get you your dreams? No, it's just a piece of paper that you paid a lot for. And although I commend you for going to college, if that's what you wanted to do, and my wife wanted to be a nurse since she was 5. She went to college, she got her degree, and it was not until she got exposed to this type of information that she realizes, you know what, I probably could have taken a different path. I'm not sure I would do that again. In fact, she told me she would not do it again, not because she hates her job. Back when she had a job, she doesn't work anymore in nursing. She doesn't work anymore currently. She's just a stay-at-home mom. Not that that's not work. That's still a ton of work, but she does not have a traditional job. Okay, I don't want to get off in the weeds, but she told me she would not do it again. See, the issue with college is that you're learning from people that do not live in the right side of the quadrant. So if I want to learn history, absolutely, to go take a history class, that's great. But if I'm looking to actually learn from people so I can collect information, character traits, skills, and educate myself to get a specific result of passive income and living in the B and the I quadrants on the right side of the cash flow quadrant, college is not the place that you're going to get that. I want you to think about this. When you get advice from someone, go back to episode 3 and just ask yourself this question: is this 95% thinking from the left side of the cash flow quadrant, or is this 5% thinking? So does this person have fruit on the tree? If they're giving me advice on a business or on what I should do with college or not do with college, or what I should take for a job, or if I should go work for myself, if I should get into investing someday, if they're giving you an idea and you're trying to figure out how am I supposed to achieve my dream, and they give you an idea and they give you counsel, and it might be well-meaning, but I've heard a lot of people steer more people wrong than I can tell you on finances. They're well-meaning people, but if it's not right side thinking, if I want to be on the right side of the cash flow quadrant, if I want my life to be passive income, B quadrant income, where it comes in all the time, where it's not dependent on what I do, if that person lives in the E or the S quadrant and they want to stay there and they have no understanding of this and they're not even trying to move over, it's probably going to be 95% thinking. So from now on, if you hear me refer to 95%ers or 95% thinking, it's not a slam. It's just saying They have a specific belief system. They've been educated a certain way, and they have certain quote-unquote truths in their life that are not actually the way that things work. So when they give you counsel, it may not be the counsel that you want to take. So again, if that applies to relationships and everywhere else, there are 5% marriages, there's 5% health, there's all that stuff. So my goal is to help you in every single aspect of your life be in the top 5%, the 5 out of 100 people that actually got to where they're at intentionally on purpose, and they actually like their life in those areas. So people who are truly rich, unlike the poor and middle class, they don't trade time for money. They're lifelong learners. They educate themselves, and they understand that who I am right now might not be who I need to be to achieve the things that I want, but I can study in those areas, develop the character traits, the skills, and I can educate myself on a daily basis to grow towards my goals. So I want to shift gears here and talk about Benjamin Franklin a little bit. And you might be thinking, what does this have to do with being a lifelong learner, the 3 L's, leadership, literacy, and leverage, and getting to the right side of the quadrant? Actually, it has everything to do with that. So Benjamin Franklin, for those of you that do not know or maybe need reminded, was one of the 3 founding fathers that signed the Declaration of Independence and went on to do a ton to really help change our country and shape the future of freedom. But it was not always that way. He actually, when he was a younger man, he was walking down the road one day, and there was someone on the same side of the street as him walking towards him that knew him. They knew Benjamin Franklin. They're walking towards him. They saw him. He saw them seeing him, and they crossed the street. Come to find out later on, a friend told him, Ben, you're a nice guy and everything, but people can't stand you. And when the friend told him you're a nice guy, what he meant was, I know you're a nice guy, but you're very abrasive, and you're cocky, and you're arrogant, and you're rude, and you put people in their place, and you're demeaning, and you're a know-it-all, and like all these things, just letting him know, like, hey, buddy, I just want to let you know, like, people can't stand the way you treat them. People don't like the way they feel around you. You're rude, you're abrasive. And that led him to, instead of saying, you know what, I am going to be a victim the rest of my life. Nobody likes me. That's just the way that I am. Instead of doing that, he chose, you know what, I'm going to change this. And this journey that he took through his life to become a lifelong learner led him to financial freedom, to passive income, to actually building and amassing enough wealth through passive residual monthly income that he was able to have the time to go out and do some of the incredible things that he did to help our country become what it is today. But he developed these 13 resolutions in his life. And I'll read them off here in just a second, but he developed these 13 resolutions, and he decided, now resolute, meaning firm decision, I've decided to become these things. And he went through each of these 13. He went through them 4 times a year. So he went through week 1 as resolution 1, week 2, resolution 2, week 3, resolution 3, all the way through all 13. And then he went through them 4 times a year, equaling 52 weeks a year. And he did this every single year for years. And he eventually ended up becoming someone that was amazing with people, that was very diplomatic, that helped even different countries. He helped the different countries, political leaders and kings and queens and things like that. He helped them get deals together, and he helped them negotiate because he was so great with people. So here are his 13 resolutions. In no particular order: temperance, silence, order, resolution, frugality, industry, sincerity, justice, moderation, cleanliness, tranquility, chastity, and humility. So he spent years going through these and became someone that developed into a person that was great with people. But earlier in his life, when he came to the city of Philadelphia, he was totally broke, literally had nothing but, I think it was either 1 or 2 loaves of bread under either one arm or both arms, depending on how many loaves he had. He was totally broke, but he got into printing, and he became an apprentice in printing, which this is the way things worked. Years ago, you became an apprentice, and then you learned how to do that task, and then you went out and opened up your own whatever you apprenticed in. So he becomes an apprentice, and he is so frugal. He saves so much money that he's actually able to start his own printing press. So he learned the skill, and he literally was so frugal. He saved so much money that he chose not to eat meat. Like, he bought vegetables and bread and some other stuff. I'm not recommending that as a dietary choice, but not the most nutritious thing, but obviously it paid off for him in the sense that he accomplished a ton with his life, and he lived financially free. And here's how. He saved up all that money, bought his own printing press, and then when someone else came to him and said, you know what you're doing, you're so good at it, can you do it for us? Can you open up a printing, I forget where this was, but they, I almost said they emailed him, but they sent him a letter and they asked if he could actually come over to their town and open up another printing press. And he's like, you know what, I don't have the time to do that, but I could front the money, pay for it, and then have an apprentice over there long distance that I could teach how to do what I'm doing. So he ended up having a guy that he basically told, look, I'm going to front the money and you're going to be the apprentice. You're going to run everything. And I'm going to keep a third for basically a franchise fee. He was super early model of franchising. I'm going to keep a third of whatever the profits are, and you keep 2/3. Now, if at any chance you want to buy me out, you can do that, or you can just continue to keep 66% or 2/3 of whatever comes in, and I'll keep the 1/3 and I'll mentor you. Now, obviously, as an apprentice and mentor relationship goes, over time, the apprentice needs the mentor less and less and less because they're getting so-and-so accustomed to doing the work that they're doing, so they would need to communicate less and less. But Benjamin Franklin ends up doing this multiple times. He had something, I think, close to or just over a dozen different printing presses. So let's just pick a nice round number. If he had 9 of them and he got a third of each one, that means that he essentially had 3 different cash flow, positive cash flow, 3 different assets that were at least 1 full printing press each as far as the income goes. So that means that he was making 3 times as much for not doing anything besides mentoring. So he had his own and he had apprentices, multiple different locations, which allowed him to become time-free and actually do all the things that he ended up doing with his life. It led to financial freedom and massive impact. So I say that because if you want to be a person that lives on the right side of the cash flow quadrant, just I want to make money, like that's not going to do it. You're probably not going to get over there because you're just hungry to make money. Like you need to have a deep why. You need to have a burning passion, a reason that you're willing to go through what it's going to take. Because obviously he didn't just wake up one day like, oh yeah, that'd be cool. Like I should stop eating meat for the next however many years, save up money, get 1 printing press, get another one. Oh man, if I got a dozen of these suckers, like I'd be set. Like that's probably not how that went. It was a long process. I think he was close to 40 by the time, or just over 40, that he actually became financially free. But again, he was able to do a lot with his life. He had a clear picture. He knew where he wanted to go, define, learn, do. He apprenticed with that guy. That was his opportunity, his vehicle to get where he wanted to go in life. So you've got to have a why. You've got to have a clear vision. You've got to have a life purpose. You've got to have something that you want to do that's impactful, that's significant. That reason's going to be different for everybody. I have my own particular reasons. I'll share them later on in the show, but you've got to have a reason that you're willing to go through the re-education, the forgetting what you thought you know, learning new things, humbling yourself, admitting that you don't know everything that you need to get where you want to go. You've got to learn all of that, and you've got to have a deep reason why you're willing to go through that if you want to get to the other side. If you guys want to read a phenomenal book on, it actually has some stories of Ben Franklin and several other people in it, but it's called 13 Resolutions for Life. It's written by Orrin Woodward. This is a phenomenal book. I've been through it multiple times. It's sitting on my shelf actually right outside of where I produce this podcast, but highly recommend the book. It goes over Benjamin Franklin's 13 resolutions, how he applied them, his story, and then the story of several other successful people, and the author walks through his personal 13 resolutions to become the kind of person that he wants to with his life and make the impact that he wants to make. So he wrote this book basically as a memoir to exactly what he chose to do with his life, and then he walked through the stories of all these successful people, the choices they made, how they became who they are. So just to be 100% transparent with you guys, unlike most of the books that I recommend on the show, which are just Amazon links, if you do use the link in the show notes to go grab this book, I will get a tiny kickback, nothing huge. The book is not overpriced to make room for that. It's just essentially like an affiliate link. But again, the book is 13 Resolutions for Life. Phenomenal book. Been through it multiple times. But be sure to tune in for episode 6, where we're going to talk about marshmallows and how they relate to your success. I hope this has been helpful for you guys. Again, if the content has been helping you, then be sure to share the show. And also, I have a surprise. I'm not even going to say what it is, but I have a surprise that I'll be introducing. I'm adding this as an aspect of the show that can help build the community, and I really want to make this show as personal and interactive as humanly possible, or I guess I should say as virtually possible, because, I'm on this end of the microphone and you are on that end of the speaker. But I want to find more and more ways that I can interact with my audience, with the listeners, with you out there, listening to the show and following this journey. So I'm not going to say any more about that. I'll introduce that on episode 6, and I'll talk to you then.